Here's how amp modelers all got started, at least for me. 11 or 12 years ago, I'm sitting in my college dorm room, not doing any studying. Hopefully that would have worked itself out one day, and all I am doing instead of studying is trying to learn the intro to Waste by Fish. And it sounds like this. And I had just started getting into the band, that is Fish, and this song really stuck out to me, especially in the early impressionable years that is the jam band world. And if you're a Fish fan, you'll probably turn your nose up in disgust and say that Waste is actually one of those bathroom/beer run songs that anytime the band start playing it live, that's when you get up and go and do your business. But if I'm being honest, it was songs like Waste and even more songs of popular classic rock songs that the jam bands would cover that really got me into the jam band world. Fish's version of Rolling Stones' Loving Cup, Lawyers, Guns, and Money by Widespread Panic, Humphreys McGee mashing up Crazy Train into All in Time. You get the point. You know the songs that I'm talking about. And I know what you're thinking, like, Ryan, why are you talking about jam bands? I thought we were talking about amp modelers. And I promise this has a point, and just wait with me for a second because I will eventually get there. And as I got more and more into the jam band stuff, I dove deeper and deeper into the live stuff. And in this case, particularly Fish. And when I was going through the live catalog of Fish, the guitar player, Trey Anastasio, just absolutely blew my mind. And yes, he was technically proficient and an incredibly masterful guitar player, especially with jazz, incorporating jazz with classic rock. But what really stood out for me, at least very early on, was the more spacey ambient stuff. Stuff that people call, his Jedi stuff, or the Trey whale call. And if you don't know what the Trey whale call is, it's essentially the siren style effect that sounds like a whale singing underwater that's used with the Digitac whammy. And it's super cool, and it sounds really awesome. And this caused me in my jammy mind to start wondering, what would happen if you turned the delay knob while playing with a delay pedal on? And it made this really cool sound, and I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I want to learn how to do that, but with an expression pedal, so I don't have to bend over and twist it while I play, and I can be a little bit more precise and do exactly what I want it to do, and it's kind of like my own little whale call, if you will. So my quest for total nirvana led me to the local guitar store, and if you've ever been to Tuscaloosa, there's not a whole lot of things outside of local stuff there, but there was a Best Buy, and I kid you not, at the time, it's like 2010, Best Buy used to have a music store within the Best Buy. Like, you could buy Fender Twin Deluxes and like nice Marshall, like JMP 45s, whatever, like the $1,000 tube amps within Best Buy. I kid you not. It was amazing back then. So I went up to the guy who was working there and I was like, hey dude, I'm trying to figure out how to turn the delay time while I'm playing. Do you have any suggestions? He's like, man, you can either go the expression pedal route or you need an Axe FX2. That's what's really going to drive this home for you. And I'm like, cool, I've never heard of that. So then I asked him, do you have any in stock? And he's like, no man, like the Axe FX is not something you can buy at your local guitar store, even like Guitar Center and like Sam Ash, they don't even have them. You need to go online directly. And I'm like, well, that's a bummer. And he's like, fortunately for you, I have one. Come to our show tonight. We're playing at the Red Shed in Tuscaloosa. Come early or stay later, and I'll show you how the Axe FX can like blow your mind and get exactly what you're looking for. And I'm like, okay, this sounds awesome. So later that night, I arrived at the Red Shed, a little bit later than I wanted, and I heard the most lush tones I've ever heard out of any guitar, anything up until this point in my life. And I knew at that moment I needed this Axe FX in my life. So I finally saved up and bought an Axe FX2 XL Plus, and it was literally everything that I had hoped it would be. And I really used it every single day until about a year ago. You see, after playing the XFX2 for 6 years, I was finally starting to get tired of it. But it wasn't because of the tones. Oh no, the XFX2 XL Plus still has some of the best tones out there, even compared to modern day amp modelers like the Fender Tone Master Pro and the Headrush stuff. But the problem that I had with the XFX2 was its form factor. It was a rack mounted unit, and I had an additional foot switch just to control the dang thing. It's heavy, and the screen looks like an old radio from the 1990s. First car, 1990 Toyota Camry. Great car. Lasted a long time. Very similar radio style as the screen of the XFX2. You see, I gigged the XFX for 6 years, playing from small local bars where I only had minimal amount of square footage on stage to the Hamilton Live in Washington, D.C. that had a massive stage where my rig looked kind of small on that stage. And the XFX2 was really cool for both of those instances. The fact that I didn't have a tube amp taking up valuable real estate on a very small stage was very efficient. And the fact that I could play on a huge stage with incredible monitoring systems and hear exactly how the XFX sounded at home on a huge stage was also very, very cool. But the fact is that I had to lug around the MFC 101 as well. And I know we're talking like first world guitar problems here. And for those of you who are uninitiated, the MFC 101 is the floor unit that controls the XFX2. It's got 21 switches that you can either use as presets or in stomp box mode, and it's awesome. It does like literally it is the brains of the operation of controlling the XFX2. So now carrying around an MFC 101 by itself isn't inherently bad. I mean, when you think about it, players carry around an amp and a pedal board all the time. So the XFX2 was my amplifier and the MFC 101 is my pedal board, right? Well, that's what I thought too until I was talking to my ex-wife's brother, who also played guitar, and he said he uses the Fractal products as well, but instead of using the XFX2 and the MFC 101, he uses the little brother known as the AX8, which essentially is the XFX2, but within the MFC 101 casing with less processing power, but has all the foot switches, so you don't need to have two different units to carry around. And at the time I was like, that's cool and all, but it doesn't have nearly as much processing power, and I need all the processing power I can get. Boy, was I naive back then. You see, I thought I needed all the processing power that I could muster up, and I thought I needed 21 foot switches. You see, 8 foot switches wasn't nearly as much that I could muster up, especially live back then. So no way was I going to trade in the XFX2 XL Plus for the AX8 with less foot switches and less DSP power. I mean, like, who do you think I am? So in that moment, I decided to buy a rack-mounted case that kind of looked like an amp head, and I muddled on. Then seemingly out of nowhere, the XFX3 was released 6 months later. And as I fought off FOMO for the need of more processing power, I kind of had to eat crow a little bit because my XFX2 looked like a Matchbox car in terms of processing power next to the XFX3, which was a real-life Ferrari. I convinced myself I didn't need it. I didn't need the latest and greatest. I didn't need the fancy screens, the more processing power. I didn't need the newest model. And I was proud of myself. I didn't give in to my need for gas. I didn't need the newest and greatest pieces of equipment. For the next 3 or 4 years, I used the XFX2. And I loved the guitar tones. I mean, like, I really loved the guitar tones. Now, I couldn't really make YouTube videos on it because nobody was watching videos of the XFX2, but those tones, man, were sounding incredible, and I loved it. Then I bought the HX Stomp XL in 2023, and I finally understood the simplicity thing that my ex-brother-in-law was talking about. All I needed was a single pedal and a single guitar, and I could play a 2-hour gig, and it sounded incredible. And best of all, it was simple. Then something weird happened. My favorite purchase of like my entire life stopped getting used. And it was because I was using the HX Stomp a lot more than the Axe FX. And it wasn't because the tones were better. No, the Axe FX, I still believe, the two at least, had better tones, but it was the form factor. It was the fact that I could take up this small little device and take it, that was not much bigger than this keyboard, and take it to a jam, and take it to band practice, and take it and go play the 930 Club here in Washington, D.C., and it still sound just as good, if not good enough, and I didn't have to carry so much extra gear and look like a kind of snob, if you will. And that alone was worth the price of admission, even with the lower DSP power, and that's something that I wouldn't even considered like 7 years ago. But I can happily say that my gas for the Axe FX3 is completely gone. I sold the Axe FX2 and the MFC 101, and I decided to buy the Fractal FM9 Turbo. And it took 2 months, and that 2 months was extremely long, but it was totally worth it. It is literally everything I've ever dreamed of. It's compact, it's lightweight, at least compared to the Axe FX2, and it's a floor unit with many different outputs. And last but not least, it has the Fractal amps, it has the Fractal effects, it has the Fractal delays and reverbs. An ironic fate of the duality of the southern things, at least what we say in the South, my tonal quest was finally complete. Well, at least from a gear perspective. I'm still twisting knobs and changing up amps and cab sims like every other minute. But in terms of buying and acquiring new gear, I think I'm set for a long, long time. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Let me know in the comment section below what made you decide what piece of gear that you use the most. I'm curious to hear from you guys and why you choose what you choose to play. If you want to know anything more about the gear that I'm using in this video, check the links down in the description box below. And thanks to Fractal Audio for making the best amp modelers in the world. I will see you in a future video. You can check that out right here. It's what YouTube thinks is best for you. And hopefully I'll see you over there. And until next time, let the music play.